Okay. So hi, everybody. Welcome to our Palestine Mondays series. Thanks to COVID, we've launched a series that takes place every day. We have a bunch of different series that are different lectures. So tomorrow's How To Tuesday, Wednesday's Workshop Wednesdays, we have Game Night Thursdays, Community Check-In Fridays, and Serene Saturdays. So today, we're going to be bringing to you our wonderful Homeland Project participants from the last couple of years. And they're going to be sharing with you their experiences, and then we're going to open up the, the floor to questions and answers so we can talk about, if any concerns you have or anything you want to talk about in regards to the application or the trip or anything like that. Without further ado, I'm going to get right into the questions. And I'm going to do the first question, which is, if everyone who's been to the homeland, so we have Ali, Aidaelsamna, and Tala Ismail, if you can each introduce yourself and tell everyone the year that you went on the trip.
Sure. I guess I'll start. I'm going to do an alphabetical order. Ali, I beat you with my first name, not my last name. So my name is Aidaelsamna. I went on the 2017 Homeland Project trip. I was in the pilot year, so it was our first year. So we worked out some kinks since then, but it was great. It was the first time I went to the West Bank in my life. I've been very involved with Palestine since, forever, but I've never been to the West Bank. I've been to Gaza, but I haven't been to the West Bank. I do not think you can get an experience the way you did with the Homeland Project. Every day was jam-packed. We went to I don't even know how many cities in 8 days. We went to over 10 cities. So some days we saw 2-3 cities at a time. We saw refugee camps. We went to different universities. I went this past January, and I tried to do as much as I can, but it was nowhere close to how much I did in the Homeland Project. So I don't understand why anyone wouldn't want to do this trip. It's once in a lifetime opportunity, and you get really close with everyone that's on the trip. And I'll pass my baton to Ali.
Yeah, hi, Ali. I also went in 2017, which was the first year. It was my second time ever being in Palestine. I went when I was younger, and my family's from Al-Beira, outside of Ramallah. So I mostly stayed there when I went when I was younger. I was about 13. And like Aida said, we got to see so many different places. And I think that was a huge benefit of going with PAC, because when I was younger, I didn't really get to explore the homeland as much as I was able to with PAC. We saw a lot of cities, like she said, we went to universities. We got to talk with a lot of different people and also just see a lot of different places, which I think is really important in kind of connecting with the homeland itself. Yeah.
My name is Tala Ismail. I went on the trip this past summer. And for me, I really appreciated PAC and the opportunity that presented itself, because my parents are Palestinians from Lebanon. So they actually never had seen Palestine either. So it was really cool to be kind of like the first person in the family since 1948 to go back and kind of be like eyes on the ground for my family back home and for my grandparents who haven't been since 1948. So I really appreciate PAC for opening that door, because without this trip, I don't think it would have been possible for me to visit. I would have been too scared or overwhelmed or daunted by the whole process. So it was a great opportunity.
Thank you, guys. It was an absolute opportunity to have you three and everyone else that was on the trip to go with us. I think, like Aida said, we've been doing this trip since 2017, and every year, I hope it gets a little bit better. And so Tala went on our latest trip. So I'm hoping you guys will see a little bit of differences in some of the things that happened in the trip, and in general, the whole trip kind of evolved into different things, especially in the application and back end of it. So the first question I want to ask, and you guys can kind of do what we just did now, is what did going on the Homeland Project mean to you? You guys kind of touched on it a little bit in your introductions, but if you can go into it a little bit more.
So what it meant to me was I felt like I had the power of knowledge after this trip. After I came back, I've had a lot of instances where I dealt with like Zionists for whatever reason. I don't know. They always talk to me. But I was able to like stand my ground and like explain what actually happens on the ground a lot more. They kept trying to like say, oh, you don't know, you don't know, you don't know. But I was like giving them examples of like what happened and what I saw and showed them pictures. And I'm like, this is not what it is. And so I felt like a lot stronger of a connection when I went there. It was very overwhelming for me. I think every day, every single one of us was crying because we had that like such a connection to the land. It was like, wow, this is like, especially when we went to one of the refugee camps, and it was where a lot of people from Jaffa went to, and like my family's originally from Jaffa, and it was just like, wow, like if life didn't happen the way it was, like what if, like if my family didn't leave the refugee camps, like I could have been like still there, like, you know, like it makes you think about your whole life in a different perspective when you actually see where you originally come from. So yeah, it was a great experience. I'm gonna keep saying that.
Yeah, I feel like very similar. So my family's half Palestinian. My dad's side's Palestinian, and he was actually born here. So I don't have as quite a direct connection as a lot of people in our community. My grandparents, my grandfather's from Palestine. My grandmother grew up in Jordan. But I had learned about Palestine growing up just kind of from stories from my family. But I also learned more. I got more interested in learning about the history exactly in college, and like Haida said, like having the experience to actually go in person and have a personal experience and connect to Palestine like that is very different than just like reading about it or hearing about it. I felt like it gave me this firsthand experience to kind of see the ground while we were there. You know, we didn't, I think one big thing that stood out to me was that we didn't actually deal with a lot of checkpoints. It was pretty calm when we were there. We didn't get stopped actually ever. But just seeing the presence of the occupation on the ground, even if you're not seeing soldiers in checkpoints, seeing the towers and seeing the way your movement is limited, it really kind of ingrains in you the experience that people have there. And I think it gives you, like Ida said, like a better way to be able to kind of advocate and express what's happening and what the reality is for Palestinians. And so I was very, very grateful for that. And by being able to just see all the different places really just added to that, because you're not just seeing all of these, not having these experiences in one place, but you're seeing a variety of different places and seeing how they're different and how they're alike and how, you know, the occupation is affecting everyone. So I think that was why it was very important to me.
I agree with both of them. I mean, the biggest thing for me was coming back with that knowledge. I've studied political science. I've studied Palestinian history. This is like my life's work, and all my friends know this. It's what I do all the time. But I'd never seen Palestine, and I'd never seen it firsthand. And you can't read about it. I mean, you can read about it, but you can't really actually understand it until you see it. So that was big for me. But also just feeling like that emotional connection. Yeah, we really did cry. I mean, I know I cried. Like from the moment I set foot in the terminal, like after we crossed the bridge on the Palestinian side, I was crying. And like from that point on, the whole trip was just very emotional. It was very just knowing that your ancestors walked on this land, and that for me at least, like being the first to go back, it was kind of overwhelming, but in a very good way. But yeah, it was definitely a big emotional thing for me. It was just kind of like, wow, you know, my parents have never seen this, but this is our land. Like going to Akka, because my family was up from northern Palestine by Akka, and just walking through Akka and thinking like, this is where I could have grown up. Like, this is where I could have grown up. This is where I could have, you know, explored who I was and adventured. And now it's under unlawful occupation. It's occupied by a different people. And, you know, just if you have a Palestinian Hawiye, you can't even go there without a like just getting all these things and, you know, getting all this stuff together and really taking it in emotionally was the biggest thing for me.
Thank you, guys. So Tala and Aida, to comment on your points. So Tala this year, she's like, I don't know why I'm crying so much this past year when we went. And I kept telling her, don't worry, nothing can beat the first year and the amount that we cried.
We did not stop crying.
Literally.
So yeah, so it's definitely a very emotional experience. And thank you guys for sharing what it meant to you. And, you know, that's kind of why PAC does this, is to really cement that, you know, the reason why you're going is to kind of keep that tied into your lives moving forward. Which brings me to my next question is, since you've been back, how do you feel like your trip to Palestine has impacted your life?
I guess I'll start again. So how did it impact my life? So like I said, it was the first time I went to the West Bank. I've been to Gaza. A very different experience, obviously. It's probably worse. But like just having that knowledge, I'm gonna keep saying this, like the knowledge of seeing it with your own eyes versus just pictures. It's like, no, I saw it with my own eyes, and you can back it up. You can share your story. It motivated me a lot more. I loved having pictures on my phone of like showing people like Khalil. I think that resonated a lot with everyone I've spoke to about it. They're like, whoa, 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 they're throwing garbage at the Palestinians. So having that experience really like broke my heart, but opened my eyes to a lot more than what you see on the news. Like you don't, you know, you hear about it, but seeing like people literally throwing garbage at the Palestinians is a way different experience. So just the knowledge and makes you more motivated to do more, I think, for the cause.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just repeating everything Aida's saying, but
It's okay.
I feel like since coming back, I feel more able to advocate for Palestine. Obviously, it's always been something I've done, but just being able to back it up and have stories and have experiences to really share and tell people about and kind of help spread awareness about what's actually going on there. And then another thing, like, yeah, I mean, just having like being able to go home and like show my grandfather like pictures from his like from Albira and like be like, oh, I was like outside your old house and like all this, just being able to reconnect my family to the land was also very great. And it's something I still want to do. I feel like I actually didn't even show my dad all of my pictures ever. And every time I'm home, I'm like, I have to show you more pictures. But yeah.
I agree. I mean, if you look at like the history of Palestinian like culture and the Nakba, for example, a lot of Palestinian history is told through storytelling. I mean, that's a big part of our culture and our history. So it's really cool for me to say that, you know, I can add to that rhetoric, I can add to that narrative because I've been there now. I have stories to pass on to my family. So I think that's really cool in the sense that it's really keeping the history of Palestine alive, because as long as we have stories to continue telling, then, you know, it'll never die no matter what Zionists try to do with erasing the history. And then again, just going back to the knowledge, it's always at the forefront of my mind now. I mean, for example, under this social isolation lockdown, I keep thinking of, oh my God, I can't wait to get out. I can't wait for my freedom back. And then I kind of check my privilege because I'm like, wow, I can't stand the restrictions for 14 days. But I know that there is a future and there is a time when these restrictions will be lifted. But for Palestinians, this is their normal. You know, they can't move freely. They can't they want to go from the West Bank. They can't even go from the West Bank to the Gaza. Like there are so many things that are in place that are never going to be lifted. So it kind of puts my privilege in check and gives me a new perspective. Like, you know, things are rough, but at least you've got a voice and freedom to advocate for people who might not have the same privilege ever. So that's how I take it.
Thank you guys for sharing. I think I definitely echo, especially what Tara said at the end, that like in these moments of reflection and when we're living in this, I just can't imagine how it is to kind of live and fight with two different things. So an occupation and this virus, and realizing that, you know, you're already very limited, you're going to be extra limited beyond that. And I'm glad to see that this trip still has an impact on your lives, even if you had gone a couple of years ago in 2017. So The application process obviously has changed from 2017 till today, mainly being the funding portion of it. So when we first launched this project, it was fully all expense paid, and then we kind of adapted it to become more of a sustainable model, where it became a scholarship, and then we decided that it would be less confusing. And so for the last year and this year, we're offering it where PAC will pay all the expenses. You just have to cover your airplane ticket. So that way you know exactly what you're walking into when you're signing up. So that's the biggest change that happened. And the other change is that the application process became more project proposal oriented. But we still have the interview phase and we still have all that other stuff. So if everyone can give, like maybe one advice that you'd give to someone who's applying, like that you thought that put you in the forefront of other people who had applied, and why you had gotten accepted.
For me, I think like something that I'm an actor. I studied acting, and so I think just using what skill set you have and kind of figuring out your background and seeing how you can use that to help you on this trip. Something when I was applying, I was like, it would be really cool if I could actually take some of these experiences and write something for like a theater piece or something like music or something. So I don't know. I think try to use your skill set to highlight what you can bring to the table. Is I think what helped me.
That's a great point. Tala, Aida, about your project.
I guess going back to what he said, just kind of highlighting the skill sets that you already have and just be genuine. So when you're proposing something, don't come up with this crazy idea that may seem cool if you really don't think it's something that you can feasibly accomplish. So be genuine and be open. And like he said, use skill sets that you already have. Don't try to be something you're not or do something you don't know how to do. I'm a writer, so mine was basically writing short stories about my experience because that's something I can do and it's feasible. And I think the people on the committee, when they're looking at your application and then when you go to the interview, I think just be genuine, because even if you have this amazing proposal, they're going to see through it. Just be yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off that. It's just be yourself and do what you can do and be honest and show like what you want to do for Palestine and how much you care about it and what you've done for the cause. I think that's really important too.
Yeah,
and I think that too, just to kind of piggyback that too, is like I'm not in a Palestinian community, and I think a lot of people that applied were, and I think that made me nervous because I was like, oh, what if I don't know enough, or I don't have enough connection to people. But I think like both of them said, like, just be yourself and be realistic about who you are, and even if you don't know a lot about Palestine or like you want to learn, just be honest about that, and I think it'll be all good.
I love your cat. So yeah, so I want to, so I would like to echo what everyone else is saying. I agree 100%. I think whenever people ask what is the secret to getting into the Homeland Project, it is really being yourself and showing how you can be an asset to the Palestinian cause and to the community at large. So, and the best way to do that is by being your authentic self. And I think that's what really the committee is looking, which is not only myself, there's a larger committee. I actually try my best not to be part of the choosing process because I know a lot of the people who get involved with this. But it's kind of looking at, like when the committee looks at it, they look at it like, who is this person and what are they going to benefit from this trip? And your job is to make a case out of that. Like, this is why I want to go. This is what I'm going to do. And this is like, essentially, why is this worth investment? So you have to kind of sell them on this idea. And the cliches don't work. So definitely steer away from cliches. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that a lot of people get into, like, oh, I want to go to Palestine because I just want to see how the reality on the ground is, which, yes, that's the point, but what does that mean? Like, and what are you going to take that experience and what are you going to do with it when you get back? And I'm more than happy to answer a few more questions about this at the end after we finish our panel. So to build on that, why do you guys think someone should go on this trip?
I would say, why wouldn't you want to go on this trip, especially especially if you care about the issue of Palestine. If you're Palestinian or not, doesn't matter. You know, that might be a stereotype. Like, people might be afraid to apply that aren't Palestinians. One of my friends is Egyptian, and she was like, "Can I even apply?" I'm like, "Yeah, as long as you're Arab American." I think that's in the rules, right? So if you're Arab or not Arab, or I'm not really sure what the exact guidelines are. Don't be afraid to apply. Just do it. If you're interested, what's the harm in it? And you'll learn so much, and it's going to be a great experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, kind of for the reasons we already said, getting firsthand experience, being able to see these places and feel the history and connect to the land. I think also, like, going with the group is really special because you get to be with this community and experience everything together, which I think is something unique to this sort of project. So for that reason, I think it's really important.
I think you should go for all the reasons that they have mentioned, but also because it'll take you out of your comfort zone and challenge you a little bit. I've traveled a lot in the past. I've been to camps, refugee camps in Lebanon, and I've worked in camps in Lebanon in the past, but this was a whole different ballgame, and I think it pushes you to be the best version of yourself. So I think everyone should go to challenge themselves.
Yes, and
Love that, Tala.
Yeah, I do.
Thanks.
Love that too. To comment on what I just said, so the requirements are you just have to be Arab American. You just have to kind of show that you are Arab American in some way or the other, whether that be that you just have to identify as it, whatever that means, as the census would say. Whatever that means, you just put that down. So as long as you identify as Arab American, that's pretty much the only criteria. And the reason behind that is because there's a lot of trips that are, I guess, accommodating towards not specifically that, and we wanted to be different in the sense of giving like our, the Arab experience, an Arab experience on the land. So so that's why we set that difference. So with our last question before we open it up to everybody, I want everybody to kind of think about their time when they were on the trip, and to think about maybe one experience or moment that happened on the trip that still sticks with you till today.
So,
I think.
Go ahead, Tala. Sorry.
No, you can go ahead. I think we're all going to end up saying Khalil. Personally, that was completely ground-shaking, mind-boggling. Like, I still get really angry when I think about it. Like, I feel it bubbling up right now. It was horrendous, and of course I knew that it was going on, but when you're walking through Khalil, which is Hebron, if for those of you that don't know, so it's basically a Palestinian city, and one of the largest settlements is located directly in the middle of the city, which is different than most of the Israeli settlements that are on the outskirts of these villages. So, there's just this anger, you walk down to like Shari al-Shuhada, and you just see the settlers walking by with guns, like settlers, like not even military, settlers walking by with these huge guns. Just, I don't know, I'm getting angry, so I don't even want to go into it. But that was one of those moments for me, I think.
Yeah, definitely same. Khalil was the most eye-opening. I think I mentioned it already like 4 different times. Can you guys see me? Yeah, I think you can. Anyway, but it was just so eye-opening and ground moving, and also going to the Quds was like, for the first time, just being in the old city was an out of a world experience. I don't know how to explain it. It felt like I wasn't, like, obviously I was on Earth, but like I just felt like so holy and spiritual, and it just like, you just know it's a holy place. Like, once you enter it, it's like, wow, like I'm so privileged to be here, because so many people want to come here and they can't. And I'm so fortunate, and we were so fortunate because our whole group was able to come, even the people with the Hawiyas. we kind of were able to go. Meeting it stopped, thankfully, and I was so happy that everyone was able to go through. That was an experience that I won't forget. And also another one, when I swam in the Haifa beach, we all
Yes.
swam fully clothed. We didn't even know we were gonna go swimming. We just were like, whatever. And we all ran into the ocean, and all of us were crying while we were swimming.
I know, me too. And it's like burning because the salt, so you're crying and your face is burning.
Yeah, and it was just like, wow, like I'm able to swim in this water that most Palestinians can't, get to. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many different experiences that I won't forget. But yeah, it was great overall.
One thing that really stuck out for me, and I think about a lot, is one of our members, Helda. She was born in Gaza, and so she had left as a baby. And when she came into through Jordan, they ended up about her background, and she actually had a Hawiya, like she didn't actually have it, but she had an identification number and everything. So her experience was actually, luckily she was able to stay the whole time. But just the kind of the experience she had to go through with them being like, okay, well, technically you're from Gaza, you can't be in the West Bank. You need to get here's a temporary ID, and you have to go get your ID card. And then once you get it, you have to leave. And we were able to, luckily, to some people that were there that helped her, I believe, and she ended up getting an ID, but not leaving. And she kind of was able to draw it out for a little bit for the duration of the trip. But then on the way out, it was like, are they even going to let her leave? Because technically she's not allowed to be here. And like, what's going to happen to her? And like, alhamdulillah, she was able to exit, but it was a process of like, okay, now I have to get through the Palestinian building first. And they were like, you're probably not going to get through. Then I have to go to the Israeli side, and then I have to go through the ends. And she was very lucky that like they didn't end up stopping her and checking her. I think because her ID was so new, it wasn't fully in the system. But just kind of seeing that someone, and again, like we have the privilege to be able to leave and just go and not have to worry about this, but to realize that this is a reality for so many people. And like I said, we didn't actually get stopped at any checkpoints while we were there, but the day we went to Nazareth and Haifa, the people with Hawiyas, they didn't come with us because we were like, they're not going to be able to get through. And then when we got through, we were like, oh, this is unfortunate because they might have made it through with us. And that was the reason we actually were all able to go to Jerusalem, because we took a risk. But just seeing the limitations that people have to deal with on a daily basis really stuck out with me. And to see it actually affect someone in our group so directly. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'm definitely going down memory lane, remembering all these great adventures we had. But yeah, I think that like everything you guys said pretty much summarizes that there's really no way of fully experiencing it, because no matter what, we are privileged. We are American citizens. That's not our permanent home. We were visiting. So to comment on Addie's points, like the first trip, we didn't get stopped by any checkpoints, and that's a huge privilege. And I think it was mainly because of the fact that the bus we were on was more known as like a touristy bus, and it wasn't, so there was a lot of different associations that were happening, while, like a bus full of Palestinians, it may not have been the case, full of like Palestinians that don't have American citizenship. So it just puts a lot of your privilege into question. I think that's, for me, is always the most eye-opening experience, is seeing how everybody questions their privilege and the moments of realization that come in. And that's always, for me, the most humbling, because it's constantly a reminder of that. But yeah, so I think that's, I'm glad that everybody still has those takeaways still today. And thank you guys for sharing. So before we open it up to questions and answers, is there anything else that we haven't covered in the questions that you guys want to go into before we open it up or talk about?
I think we covered it all. If you have any other questions, you can ask us.
Take advantage of the hotel breakfast.
Yes. Were they staying in the same one as that we stayed in?
So year 1 and 3 did. Year 2, unfortunately, did not. And we went back to the hotel because of year 2. They didn't have as great of an experience, but they did. Yeah.
Okay.
You stayed in Ramallah that second year?
Mm-hmm. No, in the second year they were in Ramallah, but they were in like a different hotel. We were told that, anyway, it was a whole long story, but we ended up going to a different hotel. And then we decided after that year that it was really not worth the difference in price. It was just better for us to stay with this hotel, because it was more centralized, like the location, which is for everybody who's applying to know that the hotel that we try to get as central as possible so that you can walk to everyone in Ramallah like without needing a taxi. While the second year, they actually did need to get a taxi to get into the main city, which is the main the center of the city. So yeah. So just to summarize, so everybody can know, I'm gonna just share my screen for a minute so everybody can see where the application is, and then we can get into questions and answers. So if you go onto our website, so pacusa.org, and then you go to Homeland Project, you will find the application. You'll see our vlog that our marketing intern put together from last year, a short description, and at the bottom, if you click apply now, you'll get an application, which is a PDF version, and you're supposed to download it, fill it up, and send it back. If you have any issues with it, you definitely should contact us and let us know. Do not wait till last minute, because that happens a lot of times. If something last minute happens and there's a complication, and then again, it's the day it was due. So there, try to be as cognizant about this as possible. This is the email you should contact in case you have any questions, and you can always call PAC at 973-253-6145 if you have any specific questions. So I just wanted to get into the eligibility requirements. So you must be an American citizen of Arab background, again, however you identify as. You must be between the ages of 18 and 35. You have to be enrolled to have graduated from a program of higher education and good academic standing. So what that means is you don't have to have graduated, but you should be enrolled in at least some sort of program. You have to demonstrate leadership skills, which is important because it's something that we do look into, and we kind of look into through the interviews and through your application. You should not have participated in a trip similar to this, similar to the Homeland Project. You cannot have lived in Palestine for more than 2 consecutive years past the age of 12. And if you have a Hawiyya, you must physically possess the card and not just have a number, and obviously no criminal record. And then all the other information I do recommend you kind of read through this application. I know there's a lot of wording, but there's a reason for that. So with this part, I just want to clarify it. So fees for the trip. So this trip costs PAC $2,750 per person. Now, if selected, you're expected to pay the airfare, and we kind of cover everything else, with the exception of the border crossing costs and any additional, like if we, for example, go to we do this sometimes, like we went to the Wabi last year, and then there was zip lining. Like, we're not going to pay for you to go zip lining if you want to do that, but we will pay for you for all other things, like if we're going to a museum or anything like that. Like, we will definitely pay for you. And then we cover 2 meals a day, which is breakfast and lunch. And as people have seen in the trips, there's been a lot of times that we also cover dinner, because we have very gracious and wonderful hosts that donate their time and their money and their family to hosting us for dinner. So with that, I will stop sharing, and then we can go into any questions and answers, and then we'll end. So don't leave, because we do have a short video and a chance to enter a raffle at the end. But I'll open it up to questions and answers.
So I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you guys for a second. So how many people apply for this, and how many are accepted of those people?
Okay, so that's a good question. So I can't let you know how many people apply, because every year it varies. But the amount that are accepted is, we ideally want to send 10, but that's not a guarantee. So for example, like let's say we only get X amount, like 5 great applicants, then we will only send 5. So we're really about quality, not about quantity. So that's kind of the secret to it. Our goal is to send 10, but like, for example, the first year we ended up sending 12. So there is the room of adding a couple more, of course, depending on the budget and if we're able to, and on all of that stuff. But again, it's back to quality over quantity. And I think we learned that last year, because we ended up accepting 7 people last year, but because of a lot of last minute things, we had 4 cancellations. And so we ended up sending only 3. I think that was the biggest thing that we said, that, you know, we were really going back and forth. Should we cancel the trip? Should we not? But we decided not to, because we said, even if it was 3 people, we hope to at least make an impact with these 3 people. And I think Tala can testify that we definitely did.
I mean, we only had 3 people, but the experience was still something really memorable. And we also added, I think it was kind of a cool dynamic, because we had 3 come from the US, but PAC filled spots from people who were already in Palestine. So every day we were with like a full group of people, people who lived in Palestine and people who traveled there just to visit family. So it was really cool to see different perspectives anyway. So it was still like an amazing experience with the 3 of us.
Yeah, which is our, we're looking into it this year. Again, it usually depends on how many people apply, and again, the quality of the applicants, but our buses usually fit, because it's a standard bus, it usually fits 20 people. And then since last year, we decided that we would try to supplement, either, again, like Tala said, with people who are living there, and just to give extra experience and, you know, more stories, more people to talk to while you're on the trip, or people who are visiting there. And then we have a separate application process for that, but that's not, that's like a little bit different experience. Like they didn't get the full, like, you know, the 3 that went, the Homeland Project, get our full attention. They get the full itinerary, the costs are all paid for, while the other people who joined us, they may have joined us for like 1 day, and they weren't really as involved with the entire program. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Does anyone else have any questions?
I think there's a question in the.
For the post activity, what are some good examples that people have done in the past? I don't know if you guys, I think they mentioned it, but I don't know if you guys want to get into a little bit more about your specific projects or stuff that you have done in the past. And we can kind of talk about that. And then I can give you guys examples of other people.
I'm still working on mine, but essentially writing short stories detailing every day. So what I did when I was overseas was journal. So every day when you get back to the hotel, you can sit down in like the cafe or the lounge, and I would journal what we did that day. And then now I'm like slowly working on writing like stories of each of the days. That way I can put them into a little book with some of the photos I've taken. Someone else on the trip with me, she's a photographer, so she did some awesome, she took like really great photos, edited them, put them together. And then Jessica, for example, she took it back and she did like a presentation to her coworkers in New York about, you know, therapy and trauma and stuff like that. So there's endless opportunities.
Yeah, I ended up also writing 4 short monologues based on the experience. So one of them was actually based on Helda's experience, which I mentioned, about having grown up here, but having the having a Hawiya, so her move around was limited. I wrote about just having a connection to the land and how special it felt. I remember actually Rania and I talked about how we were just like looking at, I think, the moon, and we were talking about how it just seemed so much like full and like closer here. I wrote about that. A couple other things. Oh, one of trying to go to the beach, West Bank, so you're unable to. And I think they were published in the PAC mag, and then I also a friend of mine was publishing a short magazine, so I was able to put it in there. And I think they were performed once, but I actually was unable to make it. But I have them now, so hopefully I can use them more in the future.
So I also wrote something for the PAC magazine with my experience. I compared it to, I think it was comparing my experience in the West Bank and to the Gaza Strip. And yeah, mostly people were taking pictures, writing stuff for the magazine that PAC has. So a lot of different ideas happened. I don't really remember what everyone did. It's been a while, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think they did a great job of summarizing some of our projects. I think some of the other ones that stood out was, for example, like Hilda. She made a beautiful painting about her identity and like how her identity was put in question, especially because of the experience that Ali had shared that she had gone through. In addition, she actually went on a couple of radio interviews and made it a point to share her story. So she did a really great job with that, and she just is about publicizing her story. we had someone who put together a really nice photo book, and she made, I think, 7 copies and put one like in her local library, put one at PAC, put one at her university. So she kind of went about doing that, and then she put an online one and circulated that one around as well. We had someone who did a really beautiful complete art exhibit, and we actually put that up. We did put it on display, and then she also put it out on display on her in her university, and then she actually did like a mini tour of her art. So she did, I think it was 7 pieces, if I'm correct, and she went and did like an art piece and then like a little description with it. It was very beautiful. You know, very beautiful exhibit. Trying to think of what else did we have. So we had, well, last year we had something unique where the entire group of people who decided to band together and make one project. So they originally came in with separate projects, but then they asked for special approval because they wanted to do something together, and they started something called Sisters for Palestine, which they pretty much put together a series of events, like about, I want to say like 5 or 6 different events, and they raised money for UNRWA. And it was really, really nice because they were able to mobilize the community and educate and share their experiences. And again, building on what Ali said, like foster that, you know, the concept of sisterhood. And because last year they were all girls, so concept of sisterhood. They also did something which was really nice too. They actually had a journal, and they had each person, like they went around and they gave each person, you know, a chance to write in it. And I think it's still circulating till today. I'm not sure. We were supposed to have someone join us today from that year, but she unfortunately had to cancel last minute. But yeah, but that's like, these are just some ideas. And to build on what Tala was saying about Jessica, she took her job as a therapist and really put it in, and she tried to make, she did like an entire experiment with her coworkers, and then she's planning on replicating that in different places. So yeah, so there's like a wide array of different projects. I hope that answers your question, Najah.
But again, just like be genuine, whatever you're interested in, whatever you're good at, whatever your talents are, capitalize on that. And then you can go from there. Like Najah, I know you're great at photography and social media. So if you wanted to do like a Homeland social media, like weekly post or something, you can come back and do like every week you post something with a narrative, something like that.
Yeah, the crying usually does start before you go on the trip. So does anyone else have any questions? I think we have time for one more if anyone has any questions. You can ask anything about their experiences, about the application. For clarity.
I got another one real quick,
Yes.
if no one else does.
Go ahead.
So let's say you do get picked, right? Where do you land? I guess you land in Amman, correct? And how is that coordinated with everyone? Like, I guess you have to arrive at a certain date.
So that's a great question. So what we actually do is we book your flight for you, but you have to pay it. So we send you an invoice. It just makes things easier in terms of coordination. And we work with you. So this is an important point. So for example, if you're like, oh, I have family in Palestine or in Jordan and I want to go visit them, as long as you give us like written approval that you and whoever else needs to be okay with this is okay with it, we can make it happen. So I think last year was actually the only year that none of our participants stayed after. But like, for example, one of our participants last year, she had gone a month in advance to spend time with her family in Jordan. And then she met us at the airport in Jordan. And then they had gone together into Palestine through the Jisd. And then they all left together. So we coordinate depending on whatever it is. So we either meet you at the airport or we meet you at the Jisd, or, you know, you want to stay later, you can stay earlier. It just, as long as you're there during that time, that's what's most important.
And everything is planned, like, for example, when you leave the hotel in the morning, like PAC will either send a driver or the person you're with is the one handling the transportation. So you're not really doing any of the thinking or planning, you just show up. So you wake up, you get in the car that's already outside, you go to the airport, you follow the group. Like, it's all very coordinated, so there's no room for error, really, hopefully. Sometimes, you know, things happen because it's al-blad and things happen, but for the most part, you wake up and you get in the car, and that's how the whole trip is. You wake up and you go find them outside.
Yeah. So that's basically it. That's from when you arrive to when you get back. We have everything coordinated. We have a special taxi that takes the people from the Jisid to from the airport to the bridge, and then from the bridge to the hotel in Palestine, and so on and so forth. We have everything already coordinated. We try our best to make sure that someone is there with you the entire time. And that's like our goal, is to always make sure that someone's with you the entire time. We have 2 chaperones that go on this trip. But of course, sometimes, unfortunately, because of the occupation and because of realities, we can't always ensure that, which is why everybody's 18 and older. So we expect mature adults, but then we stay in constant contact. So we make sure that there's a way that you're contacting us. We make sure that you're only with people we trust, even if it's not someone you know, which again is a rarity. It's not like, I think last year the group was without without us once, maybe twice. But we made sure that there was someone else in our place.
Yeah, it was like once, and then you sent Diane instead. So there's always somebody.
Yeah, because it was last year we couldn't get into Jerusalem, so we had to send them by themselves. And then also the day after, but that time we sent Diane. The time after that, we had they went to Akka and
Oh,
Nasra.
right.
Yeah, and that one none of us could get in. So that one, but we like obviously had trustworthy tour guides who took them around.
Yeah.
But again, it was the concept of getting in the car, going and doing what they have to do, and getting back in the car and getting back to where you have to go. So there's no really room, hopefully, no room for error. Any other questions? Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop the recording.